Chosen one. Somebody just made the worst mistake of their life. They sent an operative to study your patterns and gather the intel needed to dismantle you. But here is the twist. They were supposed to watch you, and they fell in love instead. You were building something real, quietly and steadily, without announcing it or performing it for an audience. You were doing the actual work, day after day, in the way that people who genuinely know who they are tend to operate. Something significant was moving toward you. Call it a fortune, call it an inheritance, call it the natural return on years of showing up with integrity when it would have been far easier not to. Something with your name on it was on its way through completely legitimate channels, and somebody else saw it coming before you did. That is the first thing you need to lock into your understanding. The people who came against you were not reacting to something you did wrong. They were preempting something you were about to do right. They saw your trajectory. They understood where you were headed, and the destination made them deeply, personally, irrationally threatened, not because of anything you did to them, but because of what your arrival would rearrange in their world. They are never doing it out of genuine grievance. They are doing it because your success, your arrival at what was always meant to be yours, would disturb something they have built their entire sense of security around. The arrangement staying exactly as it is matters more to them than fairness, more than truth, and infinitely more than you. So they made a decision. They were going to intercept what was coming to you before it arrived. They were going to redirect the flow. They had a plan, specific, calculated, and deliberately constructed, to make sure the thing with your name on it ended up in their hands instead. But at the very beginning, they made one error in judgment, the same error that small people always make when they look at someone like you. They underestimated you. They looked at your calm and read it as weakness. They looked at your patience and mistook it for passivity. They looked at your stillness and decided it meant you were unaware. They believed they were moving a piece on a board that did not know it was being moved. They were watching something else entirely. Hold that. It becomes the most important thing in this entire story. While the architects were building their plan, something was quietly happening on your side of the equation, something they had no visibility into and could not have accounted for, even if they had. You were being refined, not in the abstract, inspirational way that word sometimes gets used, in the actual pressure creates permanence way. Every obstacle that was manufactured against you, every door that closed at the exact wrong moment, every opportunity that evaporated just before it arrived, every connection that inexplicably went cold, those things were not breaking you. They were clearing your path. Every relationship that could have been weaponized against you got shaken loose. Every dependency that could have been used as leverage got dissolved. Every attachment to an outcome that would have kept you in the wrong position got quietly dismantled. You thought you were losing things. You were actually being prepared. What emerged from that clearing was a version of you that was far less manipulable than the version that entered it. Your discernment sharpened. Your ability to feel the difference between what is real and what is constructed became so precise that the very trap they were confidently assembling could not close on you. You had been made ready without knowing you were being made ready for exactly the moment when the bait would be offered. That is not coincidence. That is divine intelligence operating in your favor the entire time the opposition believed it was operating against you. And here is the thing about refinement that opposition never understands. The more pressure they apply, the sharper the instrument they are creating. Every manufactured obstacle, every blocked door, every coordinated whisper campaign designed to make you doubt yourself, all of it was working on you the way a whetstone works on a blade. You came out of it cleaner, more precise, and more capable of recognizing exactly what you were dealing with. They thought they were wearing you down. They were forging you into someone the trap was never going to catch. Now let's look at the architects of this, not to dwell on them, but because you deserve to understand what was actually built and who built it. The first figure was established and influential. This person had held a position of authority long enough to confuse that position with identity. They had resources, a network, and a long history of using both to maintain control over situations and people they believed belonged within their reach. Change was not merely uncomfortable for this person, it was existential. Their entire sense of self was constructed around a particular order, and you, with what was moving toward you, were about to disrupt that order permanently. The approach was not emotional, it was strategic. This person calculated the threat, assigned a value to stopping you, and brought in a second player. The second figure was more chaotic and theatrical, a master of surfaces. This was someone who had spent a lifetime becoming a mirror, reflecting back to whoever held power near them exactly what that person needed to see. Agreeable, charming, adaptive, and skilled at performing whatever version of themselves the moment required. If this message activated your knowing, hype this video to connect with more chosen ones on this journey. These two needed each other. The first had the motive and the resources. The second had the cunning and the access. Together, their plan had two distinct phases. The first phase was noise. Enough gossip, enough circulated doubt, enough manufactured questions about your character and your stability, seeded into the ears of people around you before you ever had a chance to speak for yourself. The goal was to soften the ground, to make you look unreliable enough that if the truth ever reached people, there would already be a ready-made counter-narrative waiting to drown it out. The second phase was the trap itself. The second figure was going to enter your life as something good, as an opportunity, a partnership, or something that felt like genuine connection. The strategy was to generate enough proximity and manufactured warmth that you would feel safe enough to commit, to sign, to agree, to put your name on something that looked like a beginning, but was actually designed to redirect everything moving toward you directly into their hands. Not an outright theft, a redirection, through you, with your apparent cooperation. Fully documented and impossible to dispute later, that was the plan. Rehearsed and airtight, the kind of plan that works flawlessly when all the pieces stay in place. One piece did not stay in place. Every operation of this kind requires peripheral players, someone to surveil, someone to move information in specific directions, someone who can be present in certain spaces without raising flags. The architects needed a person with exactly the right access, exactly the right discretion, and exactly the right background in environments where loyalty is transactional and observation is a professional skill. They found that person. They brought them in with a significant promise attached, the kind of promise that, to someone operating in a world built on scarcity and survival, represents a genuine shot at something different. That person accepted the assignment, and they started watching you. Remember what they got wrong about your calm and your stillness. Watch what happens when someone who is professionally trained to assess people, someone who has survived by knowing the difference between real and performed, actually gets close enough to observe you. Your consistency under observation is what changes everything, not a single dramatic moment, not one impressive event that overwhelms the watcher. The consistency. You are the same person across every day of observation. Your values do not shift when the pressure increases. Your character does not erode when circumstances are specifically designed to erode it. You keep showing up as yourself completely and without performance across every condition the watcher gets to witness. To someone trained in reading people, that kind of consistency does not register as ordinary. It registers as power, real power. Not the kind that comes from position or resources, the kind that comes from knowing who you are so completely that no external pressure can destabilize your identity, the kind that makes you fundamentally resistant to manipulation, because manipulation requires a self that can be reshaped, and yours cannot be reshaped. You've probably noticed a lot of Chosen One channels on YouTube have stopped publishing, videos pulled, voices silenced. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice. That's exactly why I'm putting you onto something real, Destiny Engine. I built this because I was done watching Chosen Ones get dragged through betrayal, isolation and attacks while their enemies strutted around unchecked. I want to help you accelerate the speed of your divine justice and step fully into your purpose. And the beauty of it, you don't even have to lift a finger. Destiny Engine takes their downfall and flips it into your rise. This isn't another meditation app. It's declassified consciousness technology, the same mind-programming tools your enemies once used to install fear, competition and scarcity, re-engineered to restore your sovereignty and align you with the cooperative, upgraded operating framework. It generates personalized sequences mapped to your divine purpose. The hardest thing you'll do is put on headphones, press play, and watch your enemies keep digging their own grave. Join Destiny Engine to support your favorite channels and use it for your own rise. It's a 360 win. Start your Destiny Engine for $1 today and turn everything they did to break you into fuel for your rise. Link in the description. And then there is the contrast. The Watcher has spent their entire life in an environment where everyone is performing, everyone is angling, and everyone has an ulterior layer beneath what they present. Every alliance in that world is conditional. Every promise carries a shadow version of itself. And here you are living in a completely different way, not as a performance of virtue, but as an actual expression of character. The person you are in public is the person you are in private. There is no gap between the two. To someone who has never been close to that, witnessing it is disorienting in the best possible sense. It reorders something fundamental. It makes the environment the Watcher came from suddenly look like what it actually is, instead of the only possible reality. The Watcher starts to feel something they did not expect to feel, an unease, a dissonance between the story the architects gave them about you and the actual human being they are observing day after day. Something begins to shift slowly at first, then faster than anyone in the operation anticipates. Nobody knows it yet, but the instrument is turning. The Watcher was not a soft or impressionable person. This was not someone who got rattled easily or changed loyalties over sentiment. This was someone seasoned by hard environments, someone whose survival had depended on staying cold and transactional and unaffected. The architects chose this person precisely because they believed that profile was immune to exactly what ended up happening. They were wrong, because there is a category of human authenticity that cuts through even the hardest conditioning. When someone who has built thick walls to survive a difficult world finally encounters a person who is simply, genuinely real, not performing realness, not strategically deployed warmth, but the actual thing, those walls do not hold, not indefinitely, not against sustained exposure to the genuine article. You were the genuine article, you still are, and the Watcher, built to resist manipulation of every kind, had no defense against something that was not manipulation at all. Your realness reached them precisely because it was not trying to reach them, it was simply present. And presence, when it is truly authentic, is the most penetrating force that exists. While the Watcher is quietly changing inside the operation, the main mechanism of the plan is accelerating. The second architect begins moving toward you with calibrated warmth and precisely timed attention, the specific kind of closeness that is designed to feel like being genuinely discovered by someone who truly sees you. Everything about it is manufactured. The goal is to create enough emotional proximity that you voluntarily step into the agreement that has been prepared. The approach is patient because patience is part of the strategy. Enough time passes to make it feel real, but not enough time for doubt to accumulate and surface. And here is the moment you need to fully own, because it changed everything that followed. You felt it, that quiet internal register, the thing in you that reads the energy of situations before your conscious mind has finished processing them, flagged something, not with a loud alarm, with a persistent, subtle sense that something in what was being offered was slightly off, almost right, calibrated to look right, but wrong in the specific way that your body recognizes before you can articulate it in words. You did not sign, you did not commit. You pulled back at exactly the right moment, and the window the architects needed closed without them getting what they came for. Your discernment, sharpened by everything you had already been through, was the one defense the trap had no answer for. You cannot close a trap on someone who can sense its presence before stepping into it. The architects had built their plan for the version of you that the gossip described. The actual you was something they had never properly accounted for. The plan stalls, the architects push harder, and pressure always reveals what patience had been concealing. Meanwhile, the watcher observing all of this sees something the architects cannot see from their vantage point. Your resistance is not accidental. It is the natural behavior of someone with a fully developed interior life, someone who does not need what is being falsely offered, because the false offer cannot reach the part of you that would need to be reached for the bait to work. The watcher is no longer simply monitoring you. The watcher is studying you, and what they are learning is quietly changing the direction of everything that follows. The architects, feeling the pressure of a plan that is not executing on schedule, make the move that destroys their entire operation. They turn on the watcher. Perhaps it is a dispute over what was promised versus what was delivered. Perhaps the architects simply decide that the watcher has served their purpose, and the most efficient path forward is to cut off what was owed without explanation. Whatever the specific shape of it, the result is the same. The watcher is left holding all the risk of the operation with none of the promised return. And this is precisely where the universe shows you exactly how it operates. The architects just eliminated the only thing keeping the watcher inside the operation. In a world where loyalty is a transaction, defaulting on the transaction cancels the loyalty completely. The watcher now has no reason to protect what was built, and every reason to expose it. More importantly, the watcher carries something that makes the exposure extraordinarily powerful. They were inside the operation from the very beginning. They know the planning, the conversations, the mechanics, and the players. They carry the kind of specific, verifiable knowledge that cannot be dismissed or explained away by anyone who receives it. And they carry something else. They carry what they witnessed in watching you, a changed moral orientation, the growing conviction, built up across every day of observation, that what was being done to you was wrong, not abstractly wrong, but wrong in a way that demanded correction. The betrayal by the architects did not create that conviction. It simply removed the last barrier standing between that conviction and action. The possibility that sustained proximity to you was itself a transformative experience. The architects vetted the watcher for skill and discretion. They forgot to ask whether the watcher could resist you. They never modeled for the scenario where getting close to you would awaken something in the watcher that had gone quiet, something like conscience, something like the desire to be part of something that is not rotting from within. That oversight cost them everything. The watcher makes a decision, not with fanfare, in the private space where real decisions are made, and the direction of the entire operation reverses. The watcher fell in love with your consistency. That is the specific and honest truth of what happened. Not one dramatic moment, not one impressive event that shifted their perspective overnight. The consistency, the fact that across every day of observation, under every condition of pressure, in every private and unguarded moment, you were the same person. You did not perform integrity when you thought someone was watching. You simply had integrity as a permanent feature of how you moved through the world. In a world that teaches people to become whoever the room needs them to be, to perform whatever keeps you safe and strategically useful, that kind of permanent, unshifting selfhood is genuinely rare. To someone with real observational skill, it reads as the most powerful thing a person can possess, because everything else can be faked, purchased, borrowed, or constructed. Character of this kind cannot. Either you have it or you do not, and you have it. The watcher also received the architect's full briefing about you before the assignment began. They were handed a portrait of who you are, manufactured, distorted, built from strategic slander and carefully curated gossip that was designed to justify the entire operation against you. And then they went and actually observed you. What they observed bore no resemblance whatsoever to the portrait they had been handed. That gap between the manufactured version and the actual version became impossible to sit with quietly. Because if the architects lied that completely about who you are, then the entire moral justification for the operation was itself a fabrication. The watcher, by observing you with real skill and real attention, had essentially been given a live test of the architect's credibility. And the architects failed that test in real time on every single day of the watching. You did not defend yourself against the slander. You did not mount a counter-campaign or try to correct the record through other people. You simply kept living as yourself. And living as yourself was the most devastating rebuttal possible, because it was impossible to argue with. It was just true, in real time, with a skilled and close witness who had initially been paid to see you as the enemy. The slander the architects circulated to protect themselves became the very instrument of their exposure. It collapsed on contact with the truth of who you actually are. What you need to understand about that is this: you were not just surviving what was being done to you. By simply being who you are, you were actively dismantling it. Every day you showed up as yourself, you were eroding the foundation of their entire operation from the inside through the one person they had trusted to reinforce it. You did not know you were doing it. That is exactly why it worked so completely. There is a particular quality of panic that overtakes people who have operated in secrecy the moment they realize the secrecy is ending. You can feel the energy of it even from a distance, the frantic scrambling to get ahead of a story that has already moved beyond their control, the desperate need to manage narratives that are no longer theirs to manage. The first architect, the established, influential one, is in structural freefall right now. Not the visible, dramatic kind yet, but the kind that always precedes the visible. Things that were reliably available are becoming unavailable. People who were positioned loyally are quietly creating distance. Resources that felt permanent are proving conditional. Something significant, a position, a holding, something that represented their status and security in a concrete way, is in the process of being separated from them through channels that cannot be charmed or negotiated away. You cannot permanently hold what was never legitimately yours. The mathematics of that principle are absolute. It always comes due. The universe keeps exact records, and those records are now being read aloud in rooms the first architect cannot reach or influence. The second architect faces a different kind of collapse. When someone has built their entire existence on performing whatever is needed in any given moment, losing control of the information about themselves is catastrophic in a uniquely personal way. A version of that person now exists in the world that they did not author or approve. They have no script for it. Every persona they have ever occupied was one they chose and carefully constructed. This version is being written by testimony, by evidence, and by facts circulating in spaces they cannot sanitize. What you need to notice, clearly and without apology, is where you are standing in relation to all of this. You did not orchestrate any of it. You did not study the architects, surveil them, or invest your energy in their undoing. You invested your energy in your own life, and the universe, which keeps its own books with absolute precision, handled everything else. That is what real power looks like. Not the aggression of someone who fights every battle, the deep-rootedness of someone who does not have to fight, because what covers them is greater than anything that can be deployed against them. Let the collapse continue. It is doing so entirely without any effort from you. Something significant was moving toward you through completely legitimate means, a fortune in the fullest sense of that word, not only financial, though that is certainly part of it. The entire accumulation of what was building, the opportunity, the recognition, the abundance, the positioning that gathers when someone shows up with genuine integrity over a sustained period of time. All of it was specifically tagged to you. It could not simply be taken. It had to be redirected through your participation, which is precisely why the trap required your signature, your agreement, and your willing involvement. You did not sign, and the fortune continued moving on its original course. The interference delayed it. The interference complicated its path. But interference is not cancellation. What genuinely belongs to you finds its way. It always finds its way. And now that the obstruction is being dismantled, what was delayed is accelerating. What was rerouted is clearing back toward its original destination. Something specific is also being returned. Something that was held by someone it did not belong to, a position, a holding, something representing stability and legacy, is now in the process of being formally separated from the person who held it, moving back through proper channels toward where it was always meant to arrive. You do not need to chase any of this. You do not need to manage or force it. The mechanism is already in motion. The watcher's decision set it in motion. The evidence placed in the right hand set it in motion. The collapse of what was built on dishonest ground set it in motion. Your only job right now is to remain exactly who you are and be ready to receive what is already moving toward you. And receiving it fully means understanding something important about what it represents. This is not a consolation prize for enduring something hard. This is not the universe offering you a small recovery from a big loss. What is coming back to you is arriving with the full weight of everything it accumulated during the time it was in transit, including the interest that builds when something rightfully yours is held from you longer than it should have been. The delay did not diminish what belongs to you. It compounded it. You went through what you went through not despite your destiny, but as the specific preparation for carrying it. The weight you have been holding has been building the strength you are going to need to hold what comes next. The clarity you developed under pressure is the exact clarity that will allow you to manage what arrives without being overwhelmed by it or careless with it. Nothing about this season was wasted. Every part of it was functional. Every part of it was building something in you that the arrival of your fortune is going to require. The entire operation against you had one essential assumption built into its foundation. One thing it absolutely required in order to function. It required you to be in lack. Not only financial lack, energetic and emotional lack, the specific quality of desperate reaching that makes a person vulnerable to an offer designed to look like the solution to everything missing from their life. The architects understood, consciously or by instinct, that a person who genuinely knows what they have cannot be trapped through manufactured affection. A person who is genuinely grounded cannot be manipulated through artificial closeness. The manipulation only functions when someone believes they are missing something the manipulator can provide. You could not be fully captured because you were not as hollow as they needed you to be. This is where real gratitude becomes the most powerful thing you carry. Not gratitude as a performance, not a recited affirmation while difficulty is still present. Gratitude as an accurate accounting of what is actually real, including what survived, what is still intact, and what was never taken from you despite everything aimed at you. Your discernment is intact. Your character survived every attempt to erode it. Your sense of who you are remained whole through sustained pressure, specifically designed to dissolve it. The truth is now in motion. The fortune is moving back toward you. The witness who was sent to harm you has chosen to stand for you instead. That is the real picture. And the real picture, chosen one, is extraordinary. Gratitude keeps you from becoming the desperate version of yourself that any future attempt would need you to be. Stay rooted in what is actually true. That rootedness is not passive. It is the posture from which you receive everything that is already on its way to you. This is the ending of a season, not only yours, though absolutely yours. A longer season. One that has pressed heavily on the lives of many people who operate with integrity, who do the right thing when it costs them, who carry their character under conditions specifically designed to make character expensive. It has been a season where patience was exploited, where honesty was penalized, where people who operated with genuine transparency watched people who operated with sustained deception accumulate what should have gone elsewhere. And in the quietest, most private parts of themselves, those honest people began to wonder whether the universe was actually paying attention. It was paying attention. It was always paying attention. The universe was building the case, positioning the witness, allowing the full structure of the deception to reveal itself completely, so that when the accounting arrived it would be comprehensive, not a partial correction, a full one. Your story, specifically the detail that someone sent to destroy you, was converted simply by observing you, is the signal. It confirms that integrity is not only personally valuable, it is cosmically protected. You cannot wage a sustained campaign against someone who is genuinely covered and expect it to succeed indefinitely. The covering holds, and when it holds in a way that becomes visible to others, it sends a clear message to everyone who has been quietly holding on. Your life, by simply being what it is, carries that message. You did not have to broadcast it, you just had to live it, and you did. The Watcher is no longer approaching you like a target. The Watcher is approaching you like someone who owes the truth a delivery. The mission became a conversion. The surveillance became testimony. The person positioned as the final instrument of your destruction has become the first instrument of your vindication. The architects thought they were sending a weapon into your atmosphere. What they actually sent was someone who got close enough to you to choose a different side entirely. You engineered none of this. You did not run a counter-operation. You did not study the architects, surveil them, or plot their undoing. You invested your energy in your own life, your own becoming, your own daily practice of showing up as exactly who you are. And just that was sufficient to unravel everything constructed against you. They needed you to be desperate enough to take false bait. They needed you to be unaware enough to miss the signal that something was wrong. They needed you to be unstable enough to be moved off your foundation. They needed you to be tired enough to stop trusting yourself. They needed a version of you that you were never going to give them, because the actual you was built on something real, and real things cannot be permanently moved by manufactured pressure. The Watcher could have walked away when the architects betrayed them. They could have quietly disappeared and let whatever was going to happen to you happen. That path would have required nothing of them. Instead, the Watcher chose to come forward. They chose to carry the information. They chose to accept real personal cost, because watching you live the way you live gave them a standard to hold themselves to. Because what was being done to you felt, after long enough in your presence, like something they could not leave unopposed without betraying the better version of themselves they had rediscovered in the watching. You did not ask for that loyalty. You did not earn it strategically. You earned it by simply living in a way that made someone who had been living dishonestly feel the full weight of what that dishonesty actually costs. You were the mirror placed in front of the Watcher, and the Watcher looked into that mirror and saw someone they could not continue to harm in good conscience. That is the full dimension of your power, not just the discernment that kept you from the trap, not just the resilience that held your character intact under everything thrown at it. The living force of who you are, the way it moves through other people, the way it reorients them, the way it makes everything constructed and false feel obviously false by comparison. That force belongs to you. It always has. The Watcher fell in love with it. The universe backed it. Everything built against it is in the process of coming down. We started with a Watcher who was sent to observe a target. The Watcher observed a force instead, and now the whole board has reversed. The target became the testimony. The testimony is becoming the victory. And the victory was always written. It was only ever waiting for the moment when the truth found its rightful carrier and decided to move. The circle closes exactly where it opened, with a watching and with a choice. That choice was made in your favor, and the universe had been waiting on exactly that. That is dominance. That is destiny.